Today's project is going to be making beef jerky. The raw materials are beef and seasoning stuff. I have approximately 4 pounds of a very lean cut of beef. London broil is a good one, flank steak is another one. So, about 4 pounds of that, and the other ingredients are pretty simple. We've got soy sauce, Worcestershire, garlic powder, onion powder, and liquid smoke. First thing you do when you bring the meat home, put it in the freezer. When it comes time to slice it, it will slice easier if it is firmed up for about 2 hours in the freezer. Now we make the marinade. 1 cup of soy sauce, 1 cup of Worcestershire, about 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder, 1.5 teaspoons of onion powder, and about 1.5 teaspoons of liquid smoke. And the reason we picked London broil is because it's a very lean cut of meat. Leanness is important because fat in the meat does not cure very well. Fat will go rancid. The lean meat will take up salt. It'll dry, and it won't spoil when dried out the way the fat would. Just take your knife, and I'm going to go ahead and cut off these fatty areas. I may cut some strips off of those later. But basically, you just cut your meat in thin strips. I like to work about 1/8 of an inch or less. And you can see there's not a whole lot of fat on this meat. And it just goes over to the marinade. Spread the pieces apart so they get covered on all sides. And you just spend some time cutting slices of meat. As you're cutting your meat, you may find spots that you want to get rid of. A chunk of gristle, for example, like that, or a piece of fat that you don't want in there. This is where having a couple of friendly dogs comes in handy. But remember, you don't want a lot of fat in your jerky because fat will not cure well, and it's more likely to go rancid if you store your jerky for very long. And once you've got all your beef cut up and you've got it in the marinade, just turn it, making sure that all the pieces are separated and they all get coated with your marinade. I like to get a 1-gallon Ziploc bag. You put the meat in here. And of course it's kind of messy, but that's part of the process. And then pour the extra marinade into the bag. The advantage of using the Ziploc bag is that now you can close it most of the way, squeeze maximum amount of air out of the bag. And now you can pretty much be assured that all the pieces of meat will come in contact with that marinade and they won't be left open to the air. Then we take this, put it in a pan like this in case the bag springs a leak. You're not going to get this juice all over your refrigerator. And I'm going to stick this in the fridge overnight. Tomorrow morning I will turn the meat, agitate it a little bit, let it sit there while I'm at work, and then tomorrow after work we will dry this meat out. Alright, I've laid out a piece of aluminum foil so I don't get a mess on the counter. Lay out a piece of paper towel. And you take the meat, which has been marinating overnight, lay it out in a single layer. Try not to let it fold up. And the point of doing this is to blot off the extra moisture so that you don't end up with kind of a sticky, gooey layer of syrup on the surface of the beef jerky. The meat itself has already absorbed as much of the marinade as it needs, so we don't really need to keep extra on the surface for the sake of added flavor or anything like that. Okay, I've laid out all the beef, alternating a layer of beef with a layer of paper towels. I take a doubled layer of paper towels and just smush down flat, trying to squeeze out excess moisture. If you leave the extra moisture in there, it's going to take forever for this stuff to dehydrate. So this is actually a step that's to your advantage. Alright, after we smashed it flat, take off the first layer of paper towels and we lay the meat out on a cookie cooling rack, I guess this is. Now this meat will shrink considerably as it dehydrates in the oven. So it's okay to lay the pieces close to each other. You don't want them to overlap, but it's okay if they touch a little bit. You're going to end up with big gaps in there as the meat shrinks. And we put these in an oven which is set simply on warm. I've set the oven on its lowest setting. You know, the whole point of this process is to dehydrate the meat. It's not to cook it. If you try to speed up the process by turning the heat up, you're going to end up with leather, basically. So the point is just to dehydrate the meat, and that's low heat for a long time. Okay, it's been about 2 hours. You can see that the meat has shrunk quite a bit, but it's still sort of squishy. It's still got a lot of moisture in it. So this is going to take a little more time. Alright, they've been in, you know, I would say about 4 or 5 hours, and it's really how the stuff looks that tells you it's time for it to come out of the oven, rather than a specific amount of time. It's still a little bit supple. There's still just a tiny bit of moisture in there, but it's dry to the touch, and yeah, tastes good. It's not red on the inside, and it's not so dry it's you know, dusty and crumbly. But anyway, I've got this stuff bagged up. Do the second batch, but that's how I make beef jerky. Thanks.